Kathy. Welcome to the Colorful Homeschooler podcast, where we parlay on productivity, personality, passions, education, and theory. I'm a lover of Jesus, a wife of 20 years, and a homeschool mama of 4 special needs boys who keep me constantly active. I'm so glad you're here to join me. Pull up a chair. There's space for you at this table. Welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to go into part 1 of my planning your homeschool year. And we're going to discuss some ways that you can schedule a year in homeschooling. So summer has officially begun. I am finished homeschooling at all, my senior. He will be having the graduation ceremony and party later this month, and he has completed way more than his requirements, of course, but finished all his classes for this semester. And currently he is on a youth group weekend camp. I can't believe it, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot believe that we're done. Of course, I still have 2 at home and 1 in brick and mortar schools, so all of that is still going on in my life, but I can't believe I have finished homeschooling my oldest child. Crazy. So looking ahead to, for me at this point, 2025-26, and thinking about what I'm going to need to do, how I want to plan my scheduling. If you're new to homeschooling, there are a lot of options that you have for planning out your year. So I'd like to go into those. I will name them first, and then we'll go into each one. So the different kinds of yearly scheduling options are traditional, year-round, calendar schooling, sabbath schooling, block schooling, and loop schooling. So all of those cover your way to plan out your entire year. Now, coming up, we're going to go over how to schedule your week, and then I'm going to go into how I am currently scheduling my own next year, what I do, what my steps are, all of those things. So hopefully this is a helpful series for you. So let's get into it. Traditional yearly schooling. Traditional schooling follows the local school calendar. So it will traditionally be August through May, following the agrarian calendar that had begun back when schooling was started and just kind of stuck. You take off the same holidays as the local school district. The pros of this are that you have the same holidays as maybe your cousins or neighbors that are in brick and mortar school, and it kind of establishes a very set schedule. You don't really have to think that much about it. The cons are that you have the same holidays as the neighbors and your cousins. So any vacations you go on or any type of fun leisurely activity that you want to do, there's also going to be all the school kids off at the same time. You also are relegated to a schedule that you have little control over. But the structure is set and you don't really have to think that much about it. So pros and cons, that's the traditional schooling option. Now, a year-round schedule, and it is just what it sounds like, you're schooling all year round, but there's a lot of different ways to do this. You don't follow the traditional monthly schedule. So perhaps summers are too hot where you're from, so you don't want to take a traditional summer off. You want to maybe work through the months of July and August and maybe take off September and May, because those saddle months are really beautiful weather and it's easy to be outside. And then maybe you only take a half day during the summer, so you school in the morning, and then later on in the evening you can go swimming and play with friends. You maybe only do one subject through the summer. I had friends that did high school science experimental lab courses throughout the summer so that they didn't have to worry about that during the school year. So they were schooling through the summer, schooling all year round, but they were only doing their science course in the summertime. Perhaps you like to read through the summer and do nature science through the summer, but you don't hit those as heavy during the school year, so that's an option as well. There are many scheduling options for year-round schooling. Now, calendar schooling means this also traditionally goes with year-round, but instead of beginning your new subjects in September, when a traditional school schedule would dictate you do so, you begin your new subjects in January. So in September, you might have like a little moving up ceremony so that children know what grade they're in, if that's important to you for different events and answering family members. So you might have a little moving up ceremony, but you school January through November usually, and then take December off. So that's year-round schooling, but you are schooling your schedules and your subjects on a January to November timeline. You may take off varied times throughout the year, of course, but you don't begin new subjects in September. So that's the difference there. Then there's the Sabbath year-round schooling. Now, for the Sabbath, the most common one that I'm familiar with friends of mine, you school 6 weeks on and then you take a week off. So every 6 weeks, you're going to take 1 week off for that 7th week. And the reason why, if you return back to my Sabbath rest episode, it's because that 7th week, that 7th day, the 7th week, the 7th year, the 7th time, the 7th year is the Jubilee. So all of those are specifically ordained rest times by the Lord in the book of Leviticus. And I'll link that episode in the show notes. You take a Sabbath rest every so often, so you hit the term really hard for those 6 weeks, and it's deep schooling. But you know that you have that 7th week to look forward to in order to do projects around the house, or just rest and read with your kids, or maybe go visit grandma in a different city, or your brother in a different state. You can plan ahead for those things because there is a specific week off consistently. Now, the next form of year-long schooling is called block schooling. And in block schooling, you only teach certain subjects per block, not at other times. So you do fewer subjects for longer periods of time. For example, think about a college schedule. So in high school, you may do composition and grammar, history, and math for maybe 2 hours a day. So you're really getting into these concepts, spending extra time in them. If you follow a Charlotte Mason schedule, this will not jive well since Charlotte Mason's tenets rely on short lesson times. However, this is akin to a college schedule where you are going into just a few classes throughout the week, but you are doing them for longer periods of time with a lot more workload. So for the high school example I just gave, that would be the first semester, and you would do composition and grammar, history, and math for maybe 2 hours a day. And then the next semester, perhaps you do your lab science and an elective and maybe a shorter math. So the pro is that you're juggling fewer subjects at a time. So you can really deep dive into those subjects. You can really gain a lot of knowledge from them during that time. But the couple cons that I can see is that you're trying to focus on one subject for longer. So if it's not a favorite subject, this is going to be a big drain. Also, the time off in between is longer. So if you think about summer slide, quote unquote, which is where you lose skills over the summer because you take time off in that traditional scheduling option that we talked about, now you have a longer time off in between, say, composition and grammar, and then doing that again. So you may lose some of those skills. Finally, an option for the year long is the loop schedule. And we'll go over this also for planning your week. So for the loop schedule for a year, you'll create a list of the subjects you want to accomplish over the year. You set the desired frequency, how many days per term you want to do this, and then you go through the loop. So if you have artist study, music, art project, and science lab, you may cycle through those throughout the semester. So perhaps you spend 2 weeks on artist study, and then next you would spend 2 weeks on music study, and then next you would spend 2 weeks on your science lab, and then finally you would spend 2 weeks on handicraft or an art project based perhaps on the artist study that you were doing. And you would cycle through those over and again until the end of the year. You may do this with larger subjects like history and science. And then you may have literature, composition, and math that you do every day consistently. So there are a lot of ways that you can use the year-long loop schedule as well. This gives you a lot of flexibility, and it also helps you so that if you're in a more difficult season, if homeschooling seems to be trying to fit it into shorter periods of the day, this ensures that you check everything off on your list, but it's not relegated to within 1 week or within 1 day. It's over an entire year you're getting through all of the things you want to get through. Finally, I wanted to go into some of the definitions that you'll hear thrown around that describe homeschool periods of time. So the larger overarching term is a school term. This is any division of the academic year. This is the heading of all of the 3 different ones that I'm going to show you now. So a term is any division of the academic year, and this is the most general. Next would be a semester. A semester is a half-year delineation of time in schooling. So this would be about 15 to 18 weeks long. That ensures you do a 30 to a 36-week school year if you're scheduling on a traditional school year, or you would stretch out the semester if you're on a Sabbath school year or if you're year-round to make room for those breaks that you're taking. The second delineation would be a trimester. This is 3 terms, and these are going to be 11 to 13 weeks each, removing any breaks that you're taking in between. So 11 to 13 weeks, again, we're looking at a 30 to a 36-week school year. So that one would leave you at a 33 to a 36-week school year. And finally, quarter. This gives you 4 terms, and they'll be 8 to 9 weeks each. So getting you to that 32 to 36-week school year again. And again, if you're year-round or block scheduling, you're going to remove some of those breaks to give you that full amount. So a term is the generalized description, and then under that you have semester, trimester, or quarters. And that is a way to break up your homeschool year and figure out how you are going to fit in the subjects that you want. Are you blocking? Are you looping? Are you schooling year-round? All of those things that we talked about prior. As far as scheduling for your year as a whole, I wanted to make some points that I feel pretty strongly about. Homeschool schedule should be posted for all to see, so it should be up on the wall. I usually have my children separated by their names, and we've had the same names on them with description of them. So I have Simeon the Brave, Shiloh the Lion-Hearted. Each of them have their own schedule. I make it really nice on graph paper so that it's really easy for them to follow. And they usually look at it a ton in the beginning of the year. And then as the year wears on, they really don't look at it as much, but it's always there for them to look at. So they don't think that I am randomly assigning extra work every day. So the homeschool schedule should be posted for all to see, whether it is a group schedule that you're posting or it's individual schedules. And next to the schedules that I post for each child, I will put together subject or individual subjects so they know that this is them working on their own or this is them working with their brothers. Also, remember that the posted schedule or what you have in your own planner is something to remind you of your commitments. It's helping you to have some responsibility over all the things that you desire to do. But so importantly, you need to understand it is not the master, right? Things are going to come up. The toddler's going to pull flour down, or your child's going to get sick, or you're going to have to go, bring food to a friend that's sick. Different things come up all the time. That's okay. One of the things that I try to do is not schedule to the margins. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, you can go back to my Productivity for the Homeschool Mama, my first episode I ever did. And I go into that a little bit. But it basically means you only schedule out 80% of each hour of each day, of each week, and of the year. So if you're planning in trimesters and you have 13 weeks, you only schedule 11 of those weeks in your pre-planning so that when things happen and you have to push things out, there you go, you have some extra time. The day is the same thing within that block of time that you allot to, say, the science lab. Make sure that you don't allot a 40-minute science lab every week into just a 40-minute slot. Maybe one week it's an hour long, the next week it returns to the 40 minutes, but you actually only need a half an hour for that lab. So give yourself breathing room within each of your scheduled blocks. Very important. Help your children to learn how to work on a schedule and help yourself learn how to work on a schedule so that you can all come together with joy and know what's happening. You're not wondering and the children are not thinking that you're just pushing different responsibilities on them that haven't been worked out prior. So this would be my advice for year-round scheduling. Next week, we're going to go into weekly scheduling. And as I said before, then after that, we will wind up talking about how I am scheduling out my next year of homeschooling. In my homeschool, I have usually done traditional schooling with my own flavor. So I may take a little bit of extra time off during the year, but I don't take all the holidays that the school takes, those random days that they take off for like teacher initiation or whatever. I don't know what they're doing. I don't take those off. And we tend not to start in August. We start after Labor Day, which was the New York schedule. And it's just what I'm comfortable with, even here in Idaho. And then we are still done at the end of May by not taking those extra pieces of the school year off, those extra days. I still hold myself to about 180 days approximately and a 36-week schedule. So that is what we have usually done. This has worked for vacations because I don't take the same weeks as the school takes. So I keep the same months, but not the same holidays. That's worked for us so that we're not, as I said before, using the con of yearly schooling where I'm at say a theme park or the pool at the same time as the other students. We just did our huge family vacation in Florida, and we did it in that saddle month in between spring break and the summer break. So we had just such a wonderful time and really walked on a lot of the rides by going in May. And I really studied up to make sure that we could have the best time we did. Watched a ton of videos, did a lot of blog reading, and wow, it was perfect. I can't wait to talk to you all next week about weekly scheduling options. Hopefully this was helpful. And remember, everyone, I believe in you.